Hey there guys, this is Laura from the Sketching Pad, and I'm going to talk to you today about the things that come in your acrylic kits, and I'm going to share a couple things you might want to have on hand around you while you're working on this project, and I'm also going to share some general principles of acrylic painting that we always go by here at the studio. So the first thing is each of your kits come with a image that is specific to the image that you picked. So what that's there for is really just so that you can refer to it and remind yourself what colors go where your highlights and shadows are, that sort of stuff. And the back is going to have some information on it that you might find useful. So your surfaces are either going to be a canvas or a palette wood sign. So your canvas, the different sizes are your 16 by 20, which is what's called a stretched canvas. It's got this edge and it's a little springy in the middle. The other size is an 11 by 14. It's a little bit smaller than the 16 by 20. It's not stretched. It's got like just a really thin edge. And then there's also the family pack where you have multiple images. This is an 8 by 10. So those are your canvas size options. And now for your palette signs, they come in two sizes. One of them is the 12 by 16, which is this. And then you've also got the 16 by 19. So you can kind of see a little bit of a size difference there. The slats are lined up a little bit differently. So either way, whatever size or surface that you've picked, it's going to look just fine on. All of the samples are made to look good on any surface that you guys can pick. So the next thing is your brushes. So if you have one of the larger canvas sizes or the palette wood size, so that's the 16 by 20, 11 by 14, and then the two different palette wood sizes, you're going to get a round brush that's kind of a medium round brush. It might be a different color. It just depends on what kit you get. And then you're going to have a detail brush that's used for small things. Now, the only difference with the brushes is if you have a family pack, you're not going to be getting this brush. Instead, you're going to be getting the small brush and you're going to be getting a flat brush. And that's just because when you have a smaller surface like this, you don't really need the larger brushes. So instead you have a small flat brush, but they work pretty similarly. So don't feel like there's really that much of a difference. So the next thing is you're going to get a strip of paint. Depending on what image you get and what size you get will depend on how much paint you have, but it's portioned out so that way you have enough, so don't be concerned about running out or anything like that. You might have multiple colors of the same color, like this one has 2 white and 2 red, so that's just if you need more or less. So your paint strips will look a little different depending on what size you get. So you're also getting an instructional video, and what the instructional video does is it's going to teach you and take you step by step through the process. So there's really no guesswork involved in what you're doing. You're just going to follow the tips and techniques of the instructor in the video. It's going to go over mixing colors and it's going to go over technique. So now that we've gone over what goes into your kits, some things you want to have on hand when you are at home is you're going to want to have a mixing plate or foil, like tin foil will work as well. Just some surface that you can scoop out paint and then mix it up on. Usually you want to do something that's disposable because acrylic is not the easiest cleanup. It can be cleaned up, obviously, but disposable is always going to be better for that. You're also going to want to have a mixing container. So you want to make sure that it's a mixing container that you don't mind getting messy. It can be a solo cup. It could be a Dixie cup. We use mason jars a lot here, or like sauce containers. So just something that can hold your water. And so you can rinse out your brushes. You're also going to want to have a cloth, or you're going to want to have a like a napkin or something like that, a disposable paper towel. Just make sure that it's something that can get paint on it. So you might not want to choose like a nice bathroom rag or something like that, because acrylic paint is permanent and it doesn't come out of clothing and rags very easily. So with that in mind, you probably want to be wearing some nice, not some nice clothes, but like some clothes that you don't mind getting a little messy, or throw on like an apron or something like that if you tend to be a little bit of messier of a painter, kind of like I am. So just keep that in mind. Something else that you might want to have is a blow dryer. This is not necessary because acrylic paint does take maybe like 10 or 15 minutes depending on how thick you put the paint on to dry. But the blow dryer will kind of speed up the process. So we have them at the studio, and it just kind of helps speed things up, but it is completely unnecessary if you don't have one, so don't feel like you're missing out on anything. Just wait for it to dry naturally if you don't have one. Okay, so acrylic painting principles. The first thing to keep in mind is that acrylic painting is very forgiving, which is awesome. So what that means is that you, if you end up with paint in an area that you don't like, so maybe you got it outside the lines or something like that, no problem. All you have to do is let it dry, and then you can paint over it again, because acrylic paint is pretty opaque. So it might take a couple coats to cover a mistake, but it can definitely be fixed. So don't panic and feel like you're going to ruin it. You really can't ruin it because you can just paint right over it. So if you are doing the instructional videos, you might notice that in a lot of them, you're going to start off with your background. So that's like this area back here, or like this area in between your petals, like right in here. And the reason for that is because it's the largest area in your image, and it is also the easiest to fix. So if you do your background and say you get the background into her hair or into the music notes, it's not a big deal. You can just paint over those pretty easily. So you start with your background and then you work on the main part of your image. So something I think is really important is to take care of your brushes. So what that means is when you're finished painting with it, always remember to rinse it out. Don't leave it in your water if at all possible, because if you leave it in there like this, the end of the brush can sometimes take a little curve, and it's just a little harder to work with if you do that. So I always suggest rinsing it out really good and then setting it on your table so that that way it doesn't take the work. Now, if you do leave it in your container, don't worry too much about it. You just don't want to leave it in there for too long. Just keep in mind that every painting has what we like to call an awkward phase. So the awkward phase is when you're in the middle of painting and you've got patches of paint that they're missing. Maybe you've gone outside the lines a little bit. It's really streaky and it's just looking kind of iffy. Don't panic. When it gets to the awkward phase, just keep on going through. Trust the techniques that you're learning in the video. It's all going to come out fine at the end. Don't judge your painting before it's done, because it would make sense. It doesn't make sense to assume that your painting is going to look beautiful when it's halfway done. So just wait until the end and then take a step back and then make any adjustments that you might need to, but it's going to be fine. So just hold on through the awkward phase, even though it feels weird to be in. So keep in mind that acrylic painting is permanent. I've already mentioned that. And I already mentioned making sure that you have like a smock or some paint clothes or something like that on hand. So just remember that. And one other thing that I have for you guys is if you are drinking something like maybe hot tea or coffee or wine, something a little cozy buddy there for you to enjoy your painting process. It always makes it more enjoyable for me. So just make sure that you separate it from your rinsing bucket. So like my little cup here, if you put it next to your rinsing bucket, you are going to stick your paintbrush in it. Promise you. So what you want to do is take and separate that cup a decent little distance away, maybe on two separate sides of your working space, so that that way you're not tempted to rinse your brush into your nice drink, or maybe take a swig of the paint water. That would also be nasty. So just separate those so that that way you don't end up with a big mess. Keep in mind that we are here for you. So if you have a question that maybe wasn't addressed in the instruction video, or you want to share an image with us, we'd love to see what you're working on. Just reach out to us. Don't hesitate. We'd love to hear from you. All right, guys, enjoy creating your masterpiece, and we'll see you soon.